All right, we're live. So welcome back to Dapp University. So in this video, I'm talking about why it's super important that you pay attention to the crypto space right now, because things are starting to look pretty bullish for the next several months ahead, in my opinion. Okay, so we're looking at that. We're going to look at a lot of the news updates that have happened in this space and pretty critical warnings on what you need to watch out for and be careful when you're storing your own cryptocurrency. I'm going to talk about that in this video, so you definitely want to pay attention. And we're going to answer your questions and a lot more. So if you're new around here, hey, I'm Gregory, and on this channel, I turn you into a blockchain master. So if that's something that you're interested in, then smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe to this channel. And if you want to learn how to master blockchain step-by-step start to finish, then head on over to dappuniversity.com/bootcamp to get started today. Last but not least, nothing I'm saying in this video is designed to be financial advice, and there's lots of scammers down in the comment section below. Like, just ignore them. I'll never give you my phone number or ask you to invest with me. So we got people jumping in the chat here. We got Culture Hives, we got David, we got Code Chap, Natasha, Wendy, Francis, Paul, Pranjal, Automatic Beats, Joey, Nick. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, so let's jump into this. So I want to talk about why the crypto space is looking, pretty bullish right now on the grand scheme of things. So I've been talking about this quite a bit on these live streams we've been doing over the past week or so. Again, we do these live streams Monday through Friday on the channel about 9:30 a.m. Central Time, getting started a little bit late today. But just turn on the notifications, subscribe to the channel. You'll find out about whenever we go live. And, as the crypto markets have kind of corrected recently, and we talked about, Bitcoin holding support, those critical resistance levels about $40,000, ETH around $2,700. We saw a pretty quick reversal, and Bitcoin looks like it's wanting to get back above $50,000 pretty soon on the grand scheme of things, all right? So I've talked about how I'm always been cautiously bullish throughout this entire time because of the fundamentals of the space, continuing to develop out, and how as you create more technology that has benefit to the end user, that you're going to see more activity on that, and that value can actually accrue to the cryptocurrencies itself. So we're going to look at some specifics on how that's actually taking place here a little bit later with actually a step-by-step sort of explanation on that. But in the short term with the prices, I've also been bullish simply because of kind of what's going on with the technicals and what I think is going to happen with the prices. So I want to bring up a tweet thread right here that mirrors some of this. And I've talked about Raul quite a bit on this channel. I actually posted one of his charts last Friday when we were talking about crypto. I actually tweeted out to him, I was like, hey, we use your chart in the live stream. We'd love to have you on the channel sometime to talk about, some of the fundamentals of the space. But, one of the reasons I really like Raul's commentary is, he has a pretty extensive background of really good calls, not to mention his just expertise that extends way beyond, just having discovered crypto within the last 4 years and starting a Twitter account or a YouTube channel. Like, that's what a lot of people online are doing who are making massive commentary on like crypto price forecasting. I realize that I fit myself into that description in terms of just like somebody who, understands the space, is self-taught, and has a social media account. But I don't consider myself an expert on cryptocurrency prices, and never try to pretend to be one on this channel. I try to stick mostly to my expertise, which is in the technical. So I like to rely on other people who are way more skilled beyond just somebody who has an opinion about crypto markets. This is one reason I like Raul's commentary. So anyways, let's take a look at it here. And again, if you don't know who he is, CEO, co-founder, or founder of Real Vision Finance, ex-Goldman Sachs, global macro investor, lots of great track records. So anyways, I'm finding it very hard to not get extremely bullish about the next few months. Almost every crypto chart looks coiled and ready for a big move after months of consolidation. That's what I've been talking about quite a bit on this channel. Here are the two charts that matter to me right now. So this is a total market cap. So if you're not familiar with market cap, that's basically the value of the entire supply of each cryptocurrency. So Bitcoin's total market cap is how much all the Bitcoins are worth. ETH's market cap is how much all the ETH is worth. So he's saying the total crypto market cap, so all the cryptocurrencies combined together, how much they're worth, is likely ready to move from two standard deviation oversold versus trends to overbought. So basically he's saying that, relative to the overall cryptocurrency trend, that it's currently undervalued. That looks to me like the entire space can 3x into year end and 6x into next year. And he thinks the cycle that we're in, extends. So the outright chart of market cap is ludicrously bullish once it crossed 900 million in market cap, and will be an acceleration point. So wave 3 in technical analysis terms ushered in by this giant cup and handle wedge. So that's a technical pattern that he's talking about right here. Sort of the cup and handle that you see on this price chart. So almost every chart in crypto looks equally coiled, even the small, underappreciated projects. So Writing Gold Macro Investor currently doing this work, and he's been preparing this research for his, I believe, newsletter or whatever publication he's working on, and he's saying it looks extremely bullish. So this echoes a lot of what I've been talking about, and yeah, it's one of the reasons I want to bring it up because basically, he's been mirroring a lot of what we've been saying on this channel. And he has a lot of clout to actually back it up. Okay, so it's pretty crazy. So another reason I really appreciate it is, he definitely has a big insider pulse on what's happening with big money and big funds, way more than you or I could ever have access to. Okay, so when you're talking about someone with a pretty significant background like that with something like Goldman Sachs, you're going to have a massive network of in-the-know people to know what big money is decided to do. Probably has a bigger insight into what's going to happen potentially with the ETF approval and all the types of things that we've been talking about for crypto on the horizon. There's still rumors that crypto, we could see a Bitcoin ETF approval in Q4 or October, something like that. I'll believe it when I see it. But yeah. Okay, so let's. So yeah. If we see this, if the cycle extends well into next year, which is what, I've been leaning toward and a lot of other people are saying too, especially with the ETH2 merge happening probably in Q1 next year. If you're going to be, on that rocket ship, assuming that it continues to take off, one thing you definitely want to do is keep your cryptocurrency safe through that entire time, because the last thing you want to do is watch it go to zero. So I want to bring us a report to actually talk about something, a warning, okay? I'll probably actually make a separate video on this because I think this is a topic that deserves more attention. But we saw this article come up about Coinbase reported that at least 6,000 user accounts were compromised through exploited authentication bug. Okay, so it looks like this actually happened earlier this year, between March and May. Okay, so I don't know if that means that they gained access during this time and then were exploited later, or if this entire thing happened in March and May. So some of this could be like way after the fact. This may not be as recent as we think, but it's still a really important thing to talk about. So let's just kind of briefly glance through this. So third-party actors exploited a bug in the multi-factor authentication process at crypto exchange Coinbase, gaining access to at least 6,000 user accounts between March and May of this year. So basically, the Coinbase sent out a message to the affected users. The attacker obtained user account information, then used a flaw in Coinbase's multi-factor authentication system to gain unauthorized access to the accounts and moved funds off of the exchange. Okay. As the crypto exchange told its affected users the message, basically, they don't exactly know how they got this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But Coinbase pledged to deposit funds into affected accounts equal to the amount lost during the exploit, as well as provide free phone support and credit monitoring for victims. So they were definitely making this right. But let's talk about how to protect yourself from something like this, okay? So, because this is a critical thing to know if you're in crypto. And I do like talking about this topic because, just having a technical expertise can definitely help you think about how to guard yourself. And I'll probably do a separate video on this topic and actually go a little more in depth. So definitely subscribe, all that type of stuff. I might actually do some more kind of content around like cybersecurity as it relates to crypto, because it's a super important topic in the space and it's probably not talked about enough, to tell you the truth, for normal people. And, developers can also benefit from this knowledge as well. But basically, let's start off with the cryptocurrency exchange versus like storing your own funds. There's two kind of things to think about here. So if you're storing funds on a cryptocurrency exchange, there's lots of different opinions on whether you should do this or not. I actually made a video, I think it was last week, maybe the week before, talking about this. Regardless of what you decide to do, if you end up storing funds on a cryptocurrency exchange, one thing that you absolutely need is a multi-factor authentication scheme, and don't use your phone number. Okay, so let me explain what that is in the first place. So if you're new around here, or just maybe you're not new, but you don't know what multi-factor authentication is. So the whole idea is basically if you're going to use a cryptocurrency exchange, you're signing on with the username and password. We're talking about a custodial cryptocurrency exchange here. So in order to do anything, to get into the exchange, to move funds off the exchange, you need a password and then a second authentication mechanism. That's what authentication means. When you give a website your password and it says, yes, this is you, it authenticates you. It allows you access to your account. That's single-factor authentication, just giving them a password. Two-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication, giving them more. Two-factor authentication, giving a second factor. So the most common way of doing this is providing them a phone number, okay, where basically you log in with your email address and then they say, hey, we're going to text you a code. Don't do this, all right? This is one of the absolute worst ways that you can use multi-factor authentication because in many cases, I don't know exactly how it happened with this Coinbase thing, but in many cases, you're vulnerable to a SIM swap attack. So basically what can happen is, somebody can call your cell phone provider, pretend to be you, act like they're in some sort of stressful situation and need to get a new SIM card. Like they can literally act distressed on the phone, and sometimes people will just be like, okay, whatever, we'll just get this taken care of, and they'll just ship them a new SIM card. They'll activate the phone. Now they'll have your thing. They'll have your SIM card. They can pretend to be you, and what they'll do is actually just request a password reset and then get access to your account that way. Okay, and then they'll have both factors and can do whatever they want to. So don't do that. Also, just side note, like a lot of other internet sites that want to do SMS, they push you towards two-factor authentication, and then they ask your phone number. It's really more about data collection than it is securing your account. They want to push you towards cell phones so they can collect more information about you. So what I would recommend, instead of that, you can do one of two things. You can do an authenticator app, which basically uses a hash and then encrypts that hash plus a timestamp to give you a one-time password. And then that's like this thing that, expires every minute or so, maybe 30 seconds. And then you can use that as your second factor. The problem is you have to also back up the hashes to that, or the backup words, whatever it is, in some secure place. Or you can get a hardware key that basically plugs into your computer, and then you can basically tap that as your second authentication scheme. So there's trade-offs with this, and I can talk about this maybe in a different video, go more in depth, but if you have that second thing, like a YubiKey, for example, you also need a backup of that thing. So you need at least 2 YubiKeys in case you ever lose one, because if you lose one, you lose access to your account. There's definitely trade-offs. That second one, you can store it off-site if you want to, or maybe, store it in a very secure place where nothing can happen to it and it's not as vulnerable as the first one. You can have multiple keys. You can have 2, 3, 4, 5 if you really wanted to, depending on the account, all that type of stuff. But so anyways, the whole point is most people need to use a cryptocurrency exchange, either to get into the cryptocurrency ecosystem in the very least, or to get out, okay? And some people are just outright storing significant funds on a cryptocurrency exchange. And if you're doing that, then you definitely need to care about your security. Don't use SMS. You need two-factor authentication. You don't want to use SMS. And I would probably recommend the hardware approach, but I know some people don't want to do that. And so multi-factor authentication with one-time password and one of those hash generators, I forget really what they're called, is a better approach. So you definitely want to do that because you don't want to lose your ticket to the ride, right? So what do y'all think down in the comment section below? Yeah, somebody says 2FA apps or YubiKeys are the way. Yeah. So another thing to think about is actually securing your own crypto. I talked about this some in that other video, but again, this is also pretty important, is if you are going to self-custody your crypto, maybe you choose a hybrid approach, maybe you keep some on an exchange, maybe you custody some yourself, or maybe you just keep some funds in your MetaMask wallet to buy NFTs or whatever it is. Whatever you end up doing, I definitely recommend also using a hardware wallet once you get to the point where you have, you know, a significant amount of funds that you're holding on to yourself. Okay. Now, for some people, it's not going to matter. Like if you're talking about, you know, $100 worth of cryptocurrency or whatever it is, if it's just like play money or lunch money, it doesn't really matter. But if you're talking about significant gains, and even if you start off with play money right now and this space continues to grow, your investment can grow significantly, and we want to take care of that. So definitely check out hardware wallets. I mean, there's Ledger, there's Trezor, all that type of stuff. But if you're moving funds around regularly on MetaMask and you would lose sleep at night if you lost those funds, then definitely consider a hardware wallet. So MetaMask is safe. Problem is, it's not always MetaMask's fault. You know, if you do something, if there's a user error, if you fall for a, you know, never enter your seed words into anything, of course. I mean, that's not going to change if you have a hardware wallet. People could just take your seed words if you enter them in badly. But think about the hardware wallet, especially the ones where you never enter the seed words in except on your device, is you'll know that you never have to enter your seed words into a application anywhere. Okay, so let's actually look at this tweet thread that I want to bring up, talking about how, you know, Web3 is growing and how cryptocurrency is a vital factor in Web3 growing. So this is another tweet thread from Chris Dixon. I went through a tweet thread of his last week because I think he's got a lot of great insights into the space. Of course, he's doing crypto over at A16Z. But let's look at this playbook on how Web3 networks are taking off. So here's the playbook, how basically Web3 is using tokens to bootstrap new networks. So he says the killer app of the internet is networks. So basically blockchain networks are networks. You know, these token communities are networks. The web and email are networks. Social apps like Instagram and Twitter are networks. Marketplaces like Uber and Airbnb are networks. So networks get more valuable with more participants. We talk about that a lot on this channel, Metcalfe's Law, which is great when they are at scale, but cuts the other way when starting out. This is the bootstrapping problem. So basically, if you want to create a new network, like let's say you want to create a new Facebook, for example, well, that Facebook and that new Facebook clone is not that valuable if there's not that many people using it, right? So in the Web2 era, overcoming the bootstrapping problem meant heroic entrepreneurial efforts, plus in many cases spending lots of money on sales and marketing. Because bootstrapping networks is so hard, it's likely that there are many networks that should exist that would improve our collective well-being, but don't because no one had figured out how to bootstrap them. In Web3, basically this introduces powerful tool for bootstrapping networks, network incentives. So we're seeing this a lot. Basically, we're seeing liquidity mining incentives. We're seeing basically new blockchain ecosystems, new layer ones popping up with tokens that are, you know, cheap relative to what they could be if the networks actually grow. So the basic idea is early on during the bootstrapping phase, when network effects haven't kicked in, provide users with financial utility via token rewards to make up for the lack of native utility. So you see this a lot. You see new blockchains that like don't have any users, they don't have any activity, but they have a token that's, you know, cheap. So basically it talks about this before. So over time, as the network effects and native utility grows, the token incentives taper off and eventually go to zero, and the world is left with a new scaled network. So it's basically saying the upside potential in the cryptocurrency doesn't exist anymore at some point once the network achieves full saturation. So there are lots of intricacies about how to design design the token schedule and keep out spammers and scammers, which is an interesting topic. But let's look at examples. About Helium is trying to create a grassroots competitor to big telecoms by incentivizing individuals to install a networking equipment in their home. Basically doing that with tokens. All right, you can see how Helium is doing this. Another network that's been bootstrapped with token incentives is Arweave, all right, decentralized storage network, and he talks about how they have grown like crazy. So So he's saying token incentives are effective, but also far fairer than centralized Web 2 model. Shouldn't the people who helped build a network grow to get a meaningful piece of it? So it talks about how they've done this. Yeah, so it's crazy. So this whole idea is that Web3 is turning the business model of the internet upside down and creating new ways of doing things. I made a video about this last week, kind of talking about this. Actually included on the tweet thread from Chris in that video because he's got a ton of great insights into the space. But basically, we have Web 2 business models where basically people are largely just collecting data from you. That's the end product, and they're selling that data, the highest bidder in many cases. Sometimes they're just giving you a product away for free, like Facebook, but in turn, basically, you are now the commodity that gets bought and sold. Basically, your attention and your information. So Web3 is a different story. You don't really see that money back. Web3 is a different story where basically, the thing that you're using is a network. It gets more valuable the more people use it, but then the people who are using it also are rewarded for using the network. And that's where these token incentives come into play. And that's a really powerful way of getting those ecosystems started, really early. Someone says, so you think Face ID with Apple's new upgrade would be a good idea to do or not to do? Is this for multi-factor authentication? That may be what you're talking about. Multi-factor with biometrics, maybe. How would you create a token and avoid it being a security? That's a tough question. I don't think anybody has a lot of clarity on that right now, especially with how the SEC is considering a lot of this stuff. What's the difference between ETH and BNB blockchain? So basically, Binance Smart Chain is a fork of Ethereum with basically some settings changed to make it faster. And so it's the same. Basically it's the same thing. It's a manipulated version of Ethereum that tries to achieve this scalability. The trade-off is essentially decentralization and security because they reduced the number of node counts significantly, increased the gas limit, and now the Binance Smart Chain ledger is like massive. It takes a pretty fast computer to run it versus Ethereum right now. So the whole question is why didn't ETH just do that? Well, it didn't want to make those trade-offs. Somebody says networks will incentivize me by giving me their tokens. Yes, but you usually take some sort of buy-in on your part. So one way that networks incentivize new users with tokens is basically allowing them to buy, cheap tokens for their new network. So let's just say you have a new blockchain, and the market cap is, $100 million. That means all the tokens are worth $100 million. Well, look what happened with Solana. So now it's, $50 billion basically. You can't see it on my screen, but $50 billion. So if it went from $100 million to $50 billion, what is that, a 500x increase? So that's the incentive. You buy it and it can go up a lot. Or you see this where basically they have liquidity mining incentives where you take some money and you provide it to the liquidity pools and then you get new tokens for doing that. But that's typically not for networks as much as it is for like decentralized applications that need liquidity to run. So an example of that might be a decentralized cryptocurrency exchange because think about Uniswap, for example. How Uniswap works is like you go to the website and you just click on what token you have and what token you want to receive after the swap, and you click swap, and then it routes that, and then you get a new token. So you have to ask yourself, like, well, where do the tokens come from that I'm getting, right? Where do the tokens go that I'm depositing or trading, right? Well, they go into these liquidity pools. Basically, it's kind of like a vending machine where there's a bunch of tokens, inside Uniswap. But where do those come from? Okay, it's not like Uniswap just bought all these tokens and just waiting for somebody to come swap. What's happening is there are other users who are actually giving those tokens to Uniswap in a decentralized way, and they earn a passive income reward for doing that. Number one, in the token that they deposited, so let's say they provided USDC to the protocol, then they're getting some interest rate in USDC for doing that. But then also, let's say they had a token liquidity mining incentives, they might also getting a brand new token like the Uni token, for example, as a reward. So you'd be getting interest in the tokens that you deposited, but also a new reward in a brand new token that's created by the protocol or the app itself, okay? So that's another way that they incentivize people to, that's another Web3 business model is basically yield. Only thing I find correlation with is lower market caps are riskier. They definitely are riskier. All right, everybody, that's all I got for today. As always, smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. That really helps these videos out so that more people can learn about blockchain. And if you're as fast at this technology as I am, you want to get your hands dirty, how can you get started today? Well, you can go to my YouTube homepage. You can find my free courses there. They're like Udemy courses, but they're totally free. And if you like those and you want to take the next step, or hey, maybe you want to take a master shortcut entirely, I can show you how to become a blockchain master step-by-step from start to finish over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. You don't have to be an expert to get started today. I've helped people with zero coding experience become real-world blockchain developers in a matter of months. So that's all I've got. Until next time, thanks for watching Dapp University.